This episode is brought to you by the University of Warwick's PGCE-I and PGCE IQTS programs, specifically designed to give music teachers the qualification they need to apply for jobs around the world. Stay tuned for more information. Welcome back to the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. I'm your host, Chris Kulmer, and this podcast is all about exploring the unique world of international schooling and music education, with the goal of building a stronger and more connected community of music teachers working in the world's international schools. Now, I've just returned from Japan, where we hosted the big gig at the Canadian Academy in Kobe, a city just to the south of Osaka. We were lucky to have secondary school music teacher Leslie Ziegler to help coordinate the event, and she was truly incredible to work with. So to kick things off, I wanted to give a big shout out to Leslie. Thank you, Leslie, and your team on behalf of MTIS and all of the delegates at the event for being such an amazing host and host school. And for those who aren't aware about the big gig, it is a professional learning experience that brings together international school music teachers to help foster professional connections, but also to encourage our community to deconstruct their pedagogy and explore new ideas and approaches to music education, especially around informal and oral learning, music technology, and culturally diverse music. And the hope is to use our curricular freedom to try new things, and of course to better engage students while building contextually rich music departments in international schools around the world. And we have a number of events each year, so do head to the MTIS website and look for the Professional Learning tab to learn more. Okay, on to today's episode. This episode features short interviews with 4 wonderful music educators working in the European region. This is the second installment of a bunch of conversations that were recorded at the AMI Music Educators Conference in Zagreb in November 2023. The previous installment was episode 33, if you're wondering. Now, my first guest is Callahan Davenport, who is currently teaching at the International School of Prague. Callahan was an international school student in multiple countries herself and brings this fascinating insight to the conversation. Next up is fellow Aussie Adam Gaensler, who is doing big things in terms of integrating rock and pop band into the framework at the American International School, Budapest. I then speak with Lana Skrgatic about what it's like to teach music at the American School of Zagreb as a Croatian national. And finally, I talk with Dylan Norcross, who at the time of the recording was in his first 3 months as a band teacher at the American School in London. I really like this format as we get some super valuable and kind of punchy insights from amazing people, all packed into one episode. But I'd love to hear from you. If you like this format, do reach out and let me know via LinkedIn or any other platform, please, so that we can do more of these kinds of episodes. So without further ado, please enjoy this wide-ranging set of conversations. Okay, we are here at the AMI Music Educators Conference, interviewing lots of people, finding out what they're up to, where they are in the world. And next up we have Callahan Davenport. Thanks for joining me.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great. It's so cool to be talking to such interesting people. And that's what this is all about, finding out what we're all doing and what makes us tick. Where are you working and what's your job role? Let's start there.
All right. So right now I am working at the International School of Prague, and I am a MYP general music teacher and band teacher. And I also have a pseudo-administrative role as a grade level leader of grade 7.
Ooh, lots of things.
Lots of things. I am a lots of things person, sometimes to my own detriment, but
Well,
it's fun.
Last night we were at the conference dinner and you showed some more things, which was your singing and music stuff. Is that your background, like musically, is singer-songwritery, vocals?
Very much, yeah.
Okay.
I did my degree with a focus in vocal music education, so doing classical training, musical theater, and I've just been playing guitar for forever, so it's my safe space.
Nice. Really cool. Well, we're going to hit these 2 questions that I've been asking lots of people. So the first one is, what is your favorite thing about being an international school music teacher?
I think my favorite thing about being an international school music teacher is the diversity and freedom that's in the classroom. It's definitely really fun to get to see kids from all over the world getting to do and bring their own cool things. I'm a big believer that everyone in the world to some capacity is a musician, whether it's a music appreciator and that's all that you want to be, or have that instrument that's right for you. And so it's just really fun to get to explore different aspects of how we make music. And I mean, love choir, love band, but I really like the IB structure for general music. So I get to do things like writing protest songs with 8th graders, or having 9th graders create video game music, and like all this kind of fun exploring the world. So.
And in terms of context and diversity, you mentioned you're in Prague. Tell us where you've been prior to Prague.
Okay. So I grew up in the international school system.
Oh, I love
so this is like my home is in international schools. Actually, I just had a teacher who, it's like, where are you from? School. I was like, oh, that's a great answer. I mean, a sad answer, but a great answer. So yeah, I grew up in an international school. My mother was a teacher, and I've kind of followed suit.
Can I ask where you were as a kid?
Yeah, so I was born in Hong Kong. Then before I was 2, moved to New Delhi, was there for 2 years, then down to Chennai, where I was for the next 15 years. And I was the first student at my international school to graduate preschool through 12th grade.
Ooh, nice.
And so,
love it.
Yeah, so most of the time was there, but due to that, got to travel around. Obviously, AISC is a part of CISA, and so got to visit a bunch of international schools in Southeast Asia.
And just to break apart that acronym?
American International School, Chennai.
Yeah.
And then, I believe it's, oh gosh, what does CISA stand for? It's been so long. I think it's Southeast Asia International School Association. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but lots of fun getting to see and meet new people. Went to school in the States for uni, came back internationally, and have been very happy since, in Vietnam, in Egypt, and now in Prague.
Have you met Liam Callahan?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know if I have.
Okay, on the podcast, we interviewed him actually on the back of the last AMI conference last year, and he was, I think I'd have to look back, but probably the only other person that I've spoken to who's an international school student, and that's now an international school music teacher. And so when you said that, I was like, yes, this is so cool. It's like,
yeah, there's another, I haven't met too many who've done that as well, but actually at ISP, one of my new colleagues graduated from ISP and now has come back to be a teacher there.
Wow,
just by pure happenstance that it's the same school, but international school kid coming back to be a teacher there.
So this environment of international schooling is pretty normal for you.
Fairly, but every international school is different, and that's part of the fun and joy of it, right?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Love it. Okay, really cool answer. And let's head to the next question then, which is, what is one thing you've changed in your approach to teaching music since working internationally, which might be a null question for you because it seems like you've only worked in an international school, but what's maybe changed over the years?
Well, something that's been interesting in terms of changing is I went to school in the US, and so a lot of the training I got was US forward and US based. And I have, thankfully in my new position, I have band as a class that I teach, but in a lot of international schools, it's an extracurricular, it happens at lunchtime, and so most of the teaching I've done has been general music.
Yep.
And so something that I've definitely changed is finding ways to keep that traditional music approach and branch into the new. There's so much more with electronic music than there's ever been. There's lots of production aspects. Kids have jobs that I would never have thought of when I graduated. And I'm sure in 2 years, there'll be 100 new jobs to be. So it's just really fun to get to see what the different approaches and different musical aspects there are in the world. So that's something that I've been trying to focus on, branching out and getting more of a what fits you. So for some kids, it's I play the trombone and that's my lifeblood instrument and don't take this away from me. And some kids have never made music. They've only listened to it, and you introduce them to a DAW program and they're mind blown. Mm-hmm. So when offering classes in projects, it's like, okay, we're going to do protest songs. You can either perform one live, you could arrange it on a DAW program, you could create your own protest song on whatever platform you'd like, and just trying to take that more like UDL approach of universal like design learning of what do you want here? This is our goal, but however you reach that is up to you. And seeing if we can pull that into the band world as well, because there's a lot more structures to that. But
Really cool. Well, let's leave it there.
All
We
right.
could probably go down 50 rabbit
I'm
holes
sure.
because it sounds really interesting. But let's keep in touch, and I'd love to hear where you are in a couple of years' time. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
try and reconnect and
100%, definitely.
see where you're at. But that was really nice, and thanks for taking the time.
Of course, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to get to be a full-time listener of this podcast. So
Okay, next up we have Adam Gaensler, who is at the American International School in Budapest. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good.
Thanks for joining me. How's the conference been so far?
Really good.
Yeah.
Really nice. Yeah, nice to be in my music teachers.
Yes.
It's good.
And you presented yesterday?
I presented yesterday on rock band in middle and high school.
Went well?
It went really well. It was very well received. It was very satisfying
Great.
to get a nice round of applause at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I had a lot of questions. I ran out of time to do all I wanted to do. I was worried I didn't have enough material, and
Yeah.
I was rushing at the end just to, okay, skip that, skip that, skip that. It was pretty cool.
It's kind of perfect.
Yeah, it's what you want rather than, okay, 25 minutes for questions.
What are we going to do?
You know, yeah.
Nice. Well, tell us firstly, where are you working and what's your job role?
I work at AISB, the American International School of Budapest. I teach middle school general music and high school rock band and high school music tech.
Cool. Quite a wide variety of stuff.
It is. We're not quite a big enough school that I can really focus in on one thing, so I get spread nice and thin.
Yeah. Nice. And the lights just changed
I know, I
for
just
us
got
here.
that. Yeah.
It's nice to get the sun out. Okay, I'm going to hit you with two questions. First one is, what is your favorite thing about being an international school music teacher?
All right, so I should qualify this by saying I never actually taught in my home country, so I'm not actually sure if what I'm about to say is unique to being an international school teacher, but one of the things I love is that I get kind of left alone to do what I want, and I'm not sure if it's because my admin doesn't just know enough about music teaching, or they just trust me, or whatever it is, but I got given a set of standards which could be interpreted in, when I first came to the school, the standards could be interpreted in, or they could be reached in a whole lot of different ways. So it's like, as long as I'm hitting those standards, I get pretty much free reign over what I teach and how I teach it.
Yep.
And I love that. So since I've been at the school, well, when I came to the school, there was a program that was kind of already aligned, mostly aligned with what I wanted to do. But over the years, this is my 8th year now, and I've been just sort of each year just tweaking the program a little bit more and a little bit more until it's just basically I'm doing my thing, and it's great. I'm just left alone, and I get results, and I get a lot of good feedback from people. They don't have to see what's going on behind the scenes, but they see the albums my kids produce, they see the concerts and the informal performances and things like that, and I get lots and lots of thumbs up. So they keep leaving me alone, and that really works for me.
That's great. I'd like to dig in on a couple of things, I think, but we'll go to question 2 and then see how we go. The second thing I want to ask is, what's one thing you might have changed in your approach to music teaching since teaching internationally? And you already mentioned you didn't teach in your home country,
Exactly.
but you did teach in another country.
Yeah.
So maybe some changes?
So I guess, but it's more a result of the circumstances. So when I lived in China, I was a guitar teacher in an international school, but I was not part of the overall school thing. I was just coming in and doing my pull-out lessons.
Yeah.
Then I changed because my next job, I was in Indonesia teaching elementary school, teaching elementary music, and then moved to Hungary, where I'm now teaching, as I said, middle and high. So those have been the changes. Very simple. Just I've changed what the actual job is.
Yeah.
I can't really point to anything specific I've changed over the years, not related to the nature of the job.
How did you go with transitioning from elementary to middle and high? Like, they're very different worlds, potentially.
They are. I always felt like, so my first proper job was the elementary, and I wanted middle or high, and I got the elementary job. And so I think it just felt like I was coming to where I should have been.
Yeah.
Teaching elementary in Indonesia was great, and I'm really grateful to the admin there for, taking a chance on me as my first job. But what was cool was they saw at the time, they mentioned in the interview that they saw my experience from out of the education world, like playing in bands, producing bands, things, and producing electronic music and things like that. And they saw that real world experience as valuable that could be converted in the classroom. But the transition to middle and high just felt like coming home in a sense. It felt like where I should have been.
Yeah.
Although I do remember like my first week in Hungary and being scared of the 8th graders. Like, because until that time, the biggest kids I taught were the 5th graders. And like, I had the 8th graders on my first day there and I was like, oh my God, they're going to tear me apart. It's fine now. I've come to grips with teaching 8th grade and higher. Yeah.
And then like you go back to elementary, you're like, they're tiny.
Yes,
what do we do?
Exactly.
I want to dig in, if it's okay, on producing albums. You mentioned before, like, you get left alone, but your admins see all this cool stuff that comes out. And one of those things was producing albums. What is that looking like? Are you doing rock band work where students are producing albums?
No, it's through the music tech classes.
Yep.
So we do a few units throughout the year, and each year, at least 2 of those units yield albums. So one of the earliest units we do in the year with Ableton is a ambient music unit. It's a great way to get the kids into some music theory ideas and some sort of real introductory concepts and workflow with Ableton without having to do a whole unit on drum programming first. Yeah. So the kids produce ambient tracks. We also do some live ambient, which is really nice. We basically, as an introduction to the unit, we put the computers away and we use everything else that's in the room, whether it be a rain stick, bass guitars, synths, guitars, vocals, whatever it needs. And we record record tracks that way. And so after, we're actually going to finish it up in a few weeks. So sort of mid-November, we're going to have an album of each kid in the class is going to produce an ambient track, and we'll have our group ambient pieces. And then later in the year, we're going to do a hip hop unit. Most of the kids don't want to do vocals, but we use sites like Looperman and Mixter.cc and things like that, where there's a lot of at-home vocalists just recording vocalists to a tempo, but without any backing track.
You just drop the samples.
Exactly. So we're downloading these, obviously crediting the vocalists and whatnot. But yeah, we're downloading vocal tracks, sometimes cutting them up, making verses and choruses out of them and things like that. And yeah, producing tracks that way.
That's cool.
Some of it's sounding really, really good too. It can be heard at hsmusic.aisb.hu.
Okay.
So it's a Bandcamp page, but you can hear the albums. They're all downloadable for free and whatnot. Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes. For those who are regulars to the podcast, we always have the show notes with like links because there's always cool stuff people mention. So
excellent.
That'll be in there. Great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time.
Pleasure.
For taking us on a bit of your journey, and yeah, looking forward to keeping in touch.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.
Awesome.
A bunch of MTIIS community members have successfully secured international school music teaching jobs after completing their online PGCE-I or PGCE IQTS courses through the University of Warwick. If you're looking for a university qualification to teach music in an international school, this is the best option I've seen so far. To learn more and register, visit warwick.ac.uk/CTE. That's warwick.ac.uk/CTE. Okay, next up we have Lana Skrgatic, and she is here at the Army Music Educators Conference, of course. How you doing, Lana?
I'm doing great. It's really, really lovely to have this conference at our school this time.
I know, this is so cool. And you've got this red shirt on. It's, sporting the school logo and all that sort of stuff. What is your job role? What are you doing here at the American International School of Zagreb?
So my role here at the school is upper school music teacher. So I teach grade 6 up to IB. And my other job role is a musician. I play a lot of music locally and actually sometimes internationally.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What's your instrument?
Sax, flute, keys, and singing.
I shouldn't have assumed instrument. I shouldn't have assumed that. Okay, I'd love to know a bit more about this. Can you tell us a bit about your background as a musician and music teacher?
Sure, I'll try to kind of wrap it up. So I was born here in Zagreb. I started on the piano, and I just loved music and sports all my childhood. And by the time I got to the age 10, 11, there was the war that started here in Croatia, and I was sent to a boarding school in London, the Purcell School of Music. And so this was basically the choice made for me when I had to choose between ice skating or music. And music became the primary focus, and sports was always just fun and kind of like amateur fun after that.
Okay.
So then I started playing the flute, which later became my first instrument, and singing. And then I went to college in Scotland, the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, came back to Croatia, not actually planning to teach at all, just planning to take a year to travel, to see my family, to go to the coast, to go skiing. And landed a job just teaching actually teaching English for a few months. And I realized how much I loved teaching, but I obviously never wanted to stop performing. So I'm lucky to be able to work. I started working at the school soon after that, to be able to teach music, to be able to expand, students' minds and really work with them. I love it, but also be able to perform and make music myself. So this is pretty much, the saxophone came much later on for me, and right now I balance teaching and playing, and I stayed in Zagreb ever since, and I do enjoy living here.
Yeah. Were you originally from Zagreb, did you say?
Yeah, I'm originally from here and then came back after spending 13 years in the UK, and now I'm here.
And what sort of gigs are you doing?
So it's mainly, even though I'm classically trained, I was in a rock band called Zabranjeno pušenje, so they were an extremely famous, and they're a famous Bosnian band. So I traveled a lot with them, and it got to the point where I kind of had to choose, and I actually chose to stay here. And so it was after the Australia and Canada tour, I had to it was hard to get, so many weeks off and continue teaching well. So I ended up quitting the band and just I have my own trio now, and we make some originals. It's a combination of kind of jazzy pop and a little bit of funky rock, depending on the song. Yeah. And we perform at some local events, some festivals, and the other thing I do is saxophone with DJs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So DJ on the decks and you're playing sax.
Yeah.
Do you do anything, I'm just interested here personally, do you do anything with your sax with tech? Like, are you using pedals or using anything, reverb, I'm guessing, and stuff?
Yeah. So I have a pedal. It's actually a vocalizer pedal. So I'm using some, obviously, effects. What my next step is that I'm really looking into it is some distortions and some other effects. I'm at the point where, of course, you have to have, depending on the space, you have to have certain effects. But I'm looking at the octave and different things to enrich the sound, because you can do a lot with DJs. Yeah.
Sounds great. We'll have to, if you've got anything to share, we could put it in the show notes of the podcast. Some links to some of your work.
For
Sounds
sure,
really
I'd
good.
love to, yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, I've got two big questions I want to hit, if that's okay. The first one that I'd love to know is, what is your favorite thing about being an international school music teacher?
So I think there's a lot of qualities and good things about being an international school music teacher. Some of my favorites, definitely having the diverse community of just, students and teachers from all over the world. The turnover can be obviously challenging and difficult when students are leaving so often and new ones coming, but it does make it really exciting to be able to share and to be able to expand and learn for myself from the students. So just the learning that happens. And I often said, if I was in a Croatian school, not that there's anything wrong with Croatian schools, but if I was in a state school, teaching music from this one textbook that's pretty much the same every year, I think I would have quit a long time ago, to be honest with you. Yeah. So just being able to be very creative and kind of follow the trends, and we have a mission for our school, experience the future today. And I think that's a big part of international schools. You kind of have to just experience the future today and move along. So that's really exciting for me.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot on the podcast and with the MTIS community, is about this idea of being future focused. Yeah. And I think you've summed it up really well, because we often have this freedom I guess it's often described as like curricular freedom, maybe a bit of financial freedom too, like there's a bit more money potentially in a private school, and so we can try stuff.
Definitely.
And what was your slogan again for the school?
Experience the future today.
That's cool. I like that. Really nice. Okay, lovely. And I think the next question, let's go there, is what's one thing you might have changed in your approach to teaching music since working in international school?
I think the biggest thing that changed, and I think that partly came from just the times changing and me being a musician in the changing times, but when I started teaching music, I always felt it had to be a very kind of strict curriculum with clearly covering Renaissance, Baroque, classical, romantic, 20th century, and so on, and doing all these like pockets and draws where you need to put your curriculum, which is how, in a sense, it was taught to us years and years ago. And I realized, actually, that's not the case at all. And very soon we started to, as you said, we had the freedom to be able to explore and being able to be flexible and being able to change the approach to learning and like personalize it a lot more. I've managed to, I think, improve a lot on just using, for example, 6th grade ukulele class and just having them play as a class and learn all the theory and all the terminology through the playing. And it's amazing how much more committed the students are rather than having, you know, the notebook and explaining the theory. So in that sense, we are very lucky at this school to be able to have some instruments to do that with. But I think for me, that's the main thing that changed, is that mindset of being able to personalize the learning and being able to expand and not necessarily cover that Renaissance unit. Because the kids, if they choose to analyze that piece later on in IB, they'll have the knowledge to be able to go further in Renaissance. We might not have covered it as this official unit.
Got ya. That's really cool. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for the time, and thanks for hosting this event.
It's our pleasure. It's really, really fun to have 130 music teachers from all over the world right here. Usually there's 2 of us. So.
And for those who don't know anything about this school at all and you're listening or watching, you know, it's not a giant school, right? How many students do you have?
Not
roughly?
even 400.
Not even 400, 2 music teachers. I mean, it's a beautiful campus, but yeah, to have 100 plus music teachers in the space is pretty exciting.
It's very exciting, really. So we're happy. I mean, it's a lot of work to put it together, but it's worth it.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, looking forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, and good luck with all of your work as well.
All right, so we are at the Army Music Educators Conference here in Zagreb, and next up I have Dylan Norcross with me. How you doing, Dylan?
Good, how you doing?
Great. And we just met over coffee, and I like the sound of your story, so we're going to explore that a little bit. That's what we do on the podcast. Tell us first off, if that's okay, where you're working and what your role is.
Yeah, so I'm working at the American School in London. Just started recently. I am one of 3 band directors. So I get the pleasure of teaching all the way from 5th grade starters up through senior year of high school. And I teach instrument classes, so I'll teach flute class or percussion class, clarinet class, as well as in the later grades, 7th grade, 8th grade and up, full band. And then I also get to work and specialize a little bit in a high school band, so I'll really focus in on percussion, which is my main instrument.
Cool.
So I work with the percussion section. We actually pull them out and do a percussion ensemble, where they're learning music, you know, just the 14 of us. Working on music together as well. So kind of foot in a lot of different pots there.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And you said you've just started, right?
Yes.
How long have you been working at school?
This will be my 3rd month. So got done in the States last week of June and then came here and started the 1st week of August.
Good transition. We might get into that a bit more, but let's crack into a couple of questions. The first one I'd love to ask, and you know, having been at the school for 3 months, let's see how this question goes, but what is your favorite thing so far about being an international school music teacher?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One of the things is just the variety of experiences that students come in with. And so when working with a student, it's always a little bit different with each student. So you don't have like, oh, 90% of my students have this background. You've got 5% have this background, 10% have this background, and 20% have this background, and it's also different. And seeing how that affects the students and how you interact with the students is really obvious in an international school, where in other schools when a lot of the students are similar in background is maybe a little bit less obvious. The other thing I've really loved, particularly at this school, is getting to work with students individually and in small groups while a lesson is going on. So one of the other band directors might be up on the podium and I'm pulling students out, or I'm just hanging out in the trumpet section. I'm playing with the trumpets or playing with the trombones or going back in the percussion section. And it really gives me time to hone in on the little things. Like, hey, why are you using that tiny triangle beater for this massive fortissimo triangle part, right? That I probably wouldn't hone in on if I'm up on the podium and I'm hearing 30 other people also playing fortissimo. I'm not gonna be like, hey, where's that triangle part, right? Or sitting in the trombone section and saying, oh, that fourth position note, we're a little bit sharp on that, right? Where I can really hear that and I'm playing with them and so they can see and I show them right then and there. So it really gives me the chance to get to know students even more individually through rehearsal, not just standing on the podium and rehearsing the band all the time.
So in your previous context, are you suggesting that you didn't have that collaboration maybe that you have in this context, or it's just enhanced more, like with the other teachers?
Yeah, I think it's enhanced more. So obviously as a teacher, we are always trying to connect with our students. And usually we're doing that before class starts or after class ends, right? Going to their sports games, going to the debate meet. In class is typically a little bit harder to stop the band and connect with one student when you have 30, 40, 50 other kids. But in this situation where we have multiple band directors who are co-teaching, it allows the one band director to be up there and still connecting as we do as band directors, right? But it allows me to literally just sit in rehearsal for 30 minutes next to a student and play with them, right? And the connection you build by playing with a student, right, for an entire rehearsal is much deeper, I think, and allows you to go a little bit further than the connection you can build in those 10-second conversations of like, hey, how was the game last night? Oh, I saw you scored a goal. Or, hey, I loved the sound you came in with today, right? That was a beautiful trumpet sound. And those things are nice and they do build connection, but not at the same level as like, hey, I'm going to sit with you and we're just going to play today.
Yeah.
Right? That's a totally different level of connecting with students.
Got ya. Love it. Okay. What is one thing, and again, this might be tricky because it's only been a short period of time, but what's one thing you think you might have changed in your approach to teaching music since starting to work internationally?
It's a really good question. And I haven't been here long, as we said, right? Only 3 months. That being said, I've already started to have those conversations and discussions with the other people I'm working with, whether it be the orchestra directors or band directors. So like one tiny thing that I'm just starting to think about now, actually we talked about it today, is how we count. And so I've often done the pulsing through, like, if anyone knows Darcy Vogt Williams and teaching rhythm logically, and the 1, 2, 3. And one of the things they do is pulse through multiple beats. So if it's half note, you pulse 4 2 beats. And I was talking to my colleague who is actually presenting on dyslexia and how we can teach students with dyslexia better. And the level of complexity that not adding that second beat, if you're, let's say, pulsing on a half note on beat 1. So you go 1, 3. That added layer of complexity for some students can make it so that rhythm counting is really difficult for them. Whereas if you just go 1, 2, 3, you're making it more accessible. And I've come from the idea of, well, you have to pulse through 2 because they're playing through 2. But just that simple conversation and seeing it done, I think that's one of the great things about being in this system where you're meeting with other directors, you're seeing other people teach. So often you're siloed when you're in a traditional school. Like, you are the music person. You might be the only music person for band, choir, if you're doing orchestra. So being able to have those conversations just opens up a whole world, right? You think you go from college or university where you see people teaching for a few months during your internship or cooperating teachership. And then you go out and that's the last time you see someone other than you teaching for the most part, right? You might go step into a classroom of another band director once a year or something. So being able to see teachers every day really is influencing just my basic practices and starting to make me question, like, why do I do it this way And could I do it that way? And the hope is that through that reflection and seeing that really helps change my practice, which improves, our students' learning, our students' ability to play instruments, seeing other teachers who maybe specialize in woodwind, working with the woodwinds really enhances my teaching when I'm going to go, work one-on-one or even with a group of woodwinds. So I think I don't know that I fully shifted how my teaching style has, how I teach, but I think that I'm starting to think about the components of teaching and broadening my base of tools, my base of strategies, and questioning why I do certain things. And some things I do stick to. And some things I say, well, I see how you're doing it, and this is why I'm doing it. And that almost helps solidify me in my teaching pedagogy, right? Because I say, yes, I have a reason for this. This is my reason. And that goes and moves, and then I'll tell the students, hey, this is why we're counting this way, right? When you go 1 t theta, 2 t theta, 3 t theta, 4 t theta, you're working out articulation before you even get to an instrument, right? Versus 1 eanda, 2 eanda. Now, that's not to say I won't switch to 1 eanda, 2 eanda if we decide as a group that's the way we want to go. But I think it's just that the reflection itself is what's really important there. And understanding why we're doing it and making decisions based off that reflection.
I think that's something that the international school music teaching world does really well, this reflective process. And thinking outside the box, getting influences from all over the world and all sorts of styles and different pedagogies, like you mentioned, and then finding our pedagogy and our context and being like, this is what I do and this is why, but always being open to new things. So that was really well articulated, and I'm excited to hear where it goes. 3 months in, already some things starting to shift, or at least open up, which is really interesting. And it'll be cool maybe to catch up in a year's time and see where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the time, and enjoy the rest of the conference, and looking forward to catching up more.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. Listen to other episodes by visiting mtiis.com or learn more about our community on Facebook by simply searching for Music Teachers in International Schools. If you know someone who you think I should get on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at chriskoelma.com, ChrisKoelma.com. See you next time.